Hello my lovelies. Finding patterns for your sewing can be sometimes difficult. Stores aren't carrying as many patterns as they used to, and fabric stores are disappearing. And sometimes you may not be looking for the standard type of pattern. You may be looking for something more vintage or historical. So today is all about finding those patterns. And the good news is there are a ton of websites offering sewing patterns, and some of them are even free. So let's chat about where to find some gems from the modern era, and we'll start looking further back in time. In this live stream, we're going to dive into the world of vintage sewing patterns and showcasing the best online finds from a bygone era. So whether you're looking to create a unique fashion statement or simply wanting to add a touch of history to your sewing projects, this video is for you. So let's check over and see who's online and check in with those folks, and we'll get started in just a second. Hello Kathleen, it's awesome that it is sunny. You know, we are we're actually sunny here in the Pacific Northwest. It's very, very cold, but it is sunny. So if you're new here, my name is Althea and I talk about sewing, having ADHD, and all things vintage and historical so that you can thrive through the art of sewing. So today I'm going to be talking all about enabling your need to find great sewing patterns online. Really, we're in a golden age of sewing possibilities, from small independent pattern companies with, you know, maybe a handful of patterns to large companies with hundreds of patterns. You'll be able to find something to get you sewing. So you can join the conversation in the chat. You can ask questions and share your favorite resources. The links won't show up in the comments, but you can give us the name of the shop or the website so that we can look it up ourselves. So good morning, Barbara. It's great to see you here. I hope you're staying warm. So when you are purchasing online, you have a couple of format options. You can purchase a paper pattern. You know, we're all familiar with this. A lot of times the paper patterns that you buy today are of a thicker paper. They're not necessarily the tissue paper that we're used to. Or you can purchase a digital file and print at home or at a local print shop. So let me know if you would like me to make a video on how to print out and use digital sewing patterns. So for our conversation today, I'm going to start in the modern era and kind of work back through time. There'll be a link in the description for a longer list that you can use as a starting point. I'll make something that you can download. Some of the Etsy links that are going to be in that document are affiliate links, which means I get a few pennies if you purchase from the link. But let's check the chat and see how we're doing, and then we're going to just launch right into it. Good morning, Renata. It's good morning to you too from the Great Pacific Northwest. Okay, so we are going to start with, let's see, there we go. So we're going to start with some free options, and this I really like Mood for the patterns that they have. They have some really fun designs, and while a lot of these pattern options that I'm going to be showing you are really, you know, more modern focused patterns, you can easily hack them to be more historical. So when we're looking at Mood for their patterns, they have a whole different types of patterns that you can choose from. You know, starting here at the basic sewing patterns. You know, they have a lovely shirt dress right here that, you know, is just screaming 1950s to me. And that, you know, you can download for free. The fun thing about their patterns is they tell you how much material it needs. You can purchase the fabric that they've used in the sample here And then it shows you different ways. So they give you a really nice line drawing. I really like the line drawings that Mood provides. It tells you how much fabric you need, and how much thread, and different notions. Like here you need 12 shirt buttons. They are going to ask you for your email. By now if you're getting something free on the web, it's not necessarily free, and oftentimes you have to give an email address in exchange for that. So this you could download as a PDF, and then you print off at home. Let's go back and see. What other patterns? Whoops. Well, heck. You can kind of scroll through this, or you can go over here and look at some of these other categories for patterns. So let's just look at excuse me, the cosplay section, because I have a feeling that will apply to quite a few of you out there. So let's look at the Luthien dress. Probably a reference to Luthien from House of Dragons. So there we are. This is a fun one. You could also use this pattern for Lord of the Rings. And again, really nice line drawing. How much fabric you'll need. If you let's see, do they offer to buy here? Yeah, you can buy the fabric that the sample is made of. What are some of the other ones? Oh, this one. People remember these coats from last year from the show Shadow and Bone. There's a number of videos on YouTube about various costumers making this one, but this is kind of on my on my wish list to make, because boy howdy, that would just be a lovely coat to wear here in the Pacific Northwest in the wintertime. So next up we have So Easy. This is just a sort of a general website. You will see they have a lot of different things, from sewing tips, tutorials, videos, but they do have some free patterns. And I was looking at this hoodie pattern the other day that could easily be made in some lovely like wool knits. I was looking at this one. It could be lengthened. You can do a lot of different things with these free patterns. So this one here kind of tells you more sewing information. It does provide, how much you will need of the different fabrics, the different tools you might need. It does provide a really nice size chart here. It is fairly size inclusive, which is really nice. Hey, good morning, Amaras. It's great to see you here. So there's some different pattern layout and pattern printing information. So another one of the patterns that I was looking at is this one here, this long cardigan that is super easy. This could be adapted to 1930s. It could be adapted to the 1970s. So this one would be very versatile to use for, some vintage pieces from the 70s and possibly from the 30s, depending on how you put it together. So another site that I was going to share with you for free patterns is Sew Magazine. This is from the UK, so it'll be a little bit different than the ones we're used to here in the US. So you're looking at just this pinafore here. You can download the pattern. It has a little bit of instructions here. I'm pretty sure that you have to log in, create a account with them. I don't know if you have to purchase the sewing magazine. I didn't look into that. But they are a source, great source of just a whole bunch of different types of patterns. Another one source for free patterns is sewingsupport.com, and this one's a little bit trickier to kind of navigate. They kind of bury their patterns a little bit down below. Don't fall for these advertisements. This website does have a lot of advertising. Just kind of have to roll with that one. So this one has it broken out into different categories. So let's look at the pinafores, because I'm planning on making a pinafore before very long. So these pinafores would be great for like 1950s, early 1960s kind of vintage or history bounding. You know, this one here is the Gambit. It's probably going to take it's going to take us right back to mood. So this one here, this website doesn't host the patterns themselves. You can see that they do link to other ones. Let's look at this one. So you can download the free pattern. Looking at the photographs here, it's nice. It's got side pockets, a flattering cut. This would be a lot of fun in a corduroy. So it has a nice line drawing. It has some great size, and it's pretty fairly size inclusive. Cutting instructions. So these are nice patterns, and I'm probably going to be coming back and downloading this one later on. So when we are moving into the non-free options, Berta is a great company for different kinds of designs. They tend to be nicely fashion forward, but again, there's a lot of things here that you can adapt to history bounding or looking at for different vintage looks. Like this one here, you know, kind of screams the 1960s. Let's look at, well, let's have some fun and look at their costume section. Well, fairly simple, a lot of kids ones. So this would be a great resource for Halloween. Let's look at some of their, we'll go into plus size. They have a fairly good range of plus sizes. You know, this one here could easily be a 1950s dress. And the one thing I like about Berta patterns is they're not terribly expensive. Again, we have a really nice line drawing. It has what kind of fabric you're going to want. You want jersey. You want a little bit of body. So you only want to use fabrics that have, you know, stretch to them. Well, let's go back and look at, or maybe we'll go back. There we go. Let's look at trousers. So there's a lot here that you can play with. Some really nice basic patterns for pants that you could easily kind of change around. Here we have, early 1970s. We have something that could be more 1940s here. This could be more late 1950s. So there's a lot of fun patterns here that you can adopt. One thing to remember about Berta patterns is they don't include the seam allowance. So you'll have to add that to your pattern making. So next up is Style Arc. Style Arc is a company that has a range of different basic patterns. I've heard really good things about them. I've downloaded a couple of their patterns and I haven't tried using them yet. I plan on testing out some jeans patterns at some point because I would really love some good well-fitted pair of jeans. It's kind of, the holy grail of clothing. Looking at dresses. Like this here is, very 1970s. I think I probably even had a dress very similar to this. With a little adaptation, this could easily be 1930s. So they have a lovely range of patterns. So when you come in here, you have a different choices of digital pattern, printed pattern. You can choose your size, fairly size inclusive. This is an Australian company, so it will be in Australian dollars, but they do provide the price here for other currencies, which I really like. It makes it easy to find what you need. So Style Arc is really good. They're fairly simple, basic, easy to sew patterns, not terribly complicated. Next up is Mueller Sons. I found this one just really recently. There is some really interesting patterns, and I am totally going to come back to this one. But let's just talk about this one right here, the Matador jacket. There's so many applications for this and different ways that you can put this together. I mean, this is screaming Regency and Jane Austen to me. And so it talks about the different sizes. It's not terribly size inclusive here for this one. You will need to do some calculations if you're still on the imperial measuring system. All of the information here on this one is in metrics. But they have some really intriguing patterns that I am going to be coming back and exploring even even a little bit more. Yeah, so they have jeans patterns that, I like these. These are a little bit different. It has different options for them. They have the classic jeans. They have the mom jeans. And then I thought I saw leggings in there somewhere with a strap to go over the foot. Maybe I was misseeing something. Nope. That one does look like it has a strap that goes underneath the foot in the shoe. And then you can make the matching suspenders there for an entire look. So they have some really interesting patterns, and I am going to be coming back probably and getting some of these. Like this one. God, I love this one. I'm looking at this one and perhaps making it in a tweed. That would be lovely, in a wool tweed for winter wear. Okay, so the next one up is by Bootstrap Fashion, and this company you need to check out. So let's look at this skirt right here, just because it's at the top. This is a really interesting skirt. It's got a little bit of a, a belt, and then it has a you can go in and give them your measurements so that the pattern that is generated is created and custom just for you. And it's not terribly expensive. And I just, they have so many patterns. Coming in here to slopers, you know, we recommend that, you know, everyone have what's called a sloper. Now, a sloper is a very basic garment that you have customized to your size, so that when you do pattern alterations, you have this basic building block already set up and customized to your own body. So if we go in here, we'll look at this for pants. So again, you can start out with a sloper that has your measurements, but it's not just measurements, because we all know that even though we may have the same measurements as someone else, our body shape can be different. So what I really like about these patterns is it gives you an option for, you know, how much belly you have or don't have. It talks about your shape of your buttocks, so that when the pattern is drafted, it can adapt to your own body. And then, you know, it has height. And I'm definitely coming back to this site, and I'm just going to open my wallet, put in my measurements, open my wallet, and see what I get. If we look at the designer patterns, they have some really fun things. Like, this is like, seriously, you know, like your basic cottagecore dress. Yeah, Kathleen, that's a really good point. You know, dimensions do change, and you know, you can come back in here and get the pattern redrafted to you if the, you know, your shape and your different sizes change. One thing that I wish they have, and I'm not seeing here, is a better way of organizing. It's just kind of all mishmashed together, so you just have to go through and look at the different patterns. Oh, let's come back to this one. Sorry, I hope I'm not making anyone dizzy with me going up and down. So this would be a great way to, you know, start to make a corset. It's not necessarily historically accurate, but by putting in, you know, your measurements, you can start from a place with something that is, you know, close to what your body is looking like, and that just really will help in getting things to fit correctly. So that is a really great website. So going into something that is a little bit more historical, and these I should have put into the free department. The Los Angeles Costume and Textiles Department at LACMA has this series of articles, and it will give you the pattern for the garment that is on display there. And so for this 1770s suit, digging the cone head hairstyle, it tells you a little bit about, you know, the styles of the time. It gives you the pattern. So you would need to draft this pattern to your own size. So this is maybe not a beginner's project, but if you have a little bit more experience with sewing, this would be a great source for really interesting and accurate clothing. So let's let's look at these lounging pajamas, because everyone needs lounging pajamas. So this is from the late 9th century. So this one is from 1913. And again, we have the pattern here, how it goes together. So this is a great resource, you know, if you're looking for patterns in these time periods. Like I said, not really for beginners, but once you have a little bit of sewing skill underneath your belt, this would, you know, be a great resource. So here is something a little bit different. Again, I probably should put this. Apparently I did not organize my tabs as well as I should have. So this is the Antique Pattern Library, and if you are familiar with like archive.org, it's very similar to that. It has historical documents online that you can access. So if we go to, let's look at sewing, what they have here. So they have a whole bunch of different types of sewing books, and you can, let's see, there we go. If I click the right spot, so this is like a complete course in dressmaking, and the nice thing here is, I'm just going to scroll through, so I hope that I don't make anyone seasick. A lot of these will have patterns in them and how to draft. This one looks like it is just sort of your basic sewing. So this is a fun place to head down a rabbit hole, baby. And this will take up some, you know, just you know, you might as well face it. Get yourself a caffeinated beverage, get some comfy clothes on when you start looking at this website. Let's go into the dressmaking. So this one, it has a lot of text in German. So if you can speak German, that would be an awesome one. So going back here, let's look at sewing patterns. Let's search for sewing patterns. Nope, that's not where I wanted to search for sewing patterns. Well, you can explore this and see what you can find. There are just tons of links here that you can, like I said, spend so many hours going down this rabbit hole. Next up is Folklore Patterns. So this company has been around a really long time, really long time. And it has a lot of patterns that are based on traditional dress from around the world. And a lot of the patterns are super easy to sew up. A lot of the patterns are based on rectangular construction. So let's go up here and see what we can find. Let's see, go over to vintage patterns. Let's see, I have this one here to make up. I want to make myself some bib overalls for gardening later this year. I know that and Kathleen's already diving into that website. I know I'm such a bad influence, but I'm not at all sorry. Sorry, not sorry. And so this is a great resource for these sort of vintage that are a little bit more expensive, not terribly size inclusive, but they're also very simple patterns, so that if you have any experience at all with pattern drafting, you should be able to alter the pattern to make it fit for you. I made this pattern, I don't know, or one of theirs similar to this back in the 1980s. So, like I said, these patterns have been around for a long time, and the good thing about that is they've had a lot of time to perfect these patterns, so they're just wonderful to work with. Well, that was a blank one. So going into more historical pattern sources, the Mantua Maker, they have different time periods, different places that you can choose from. Let's look at Regency. We'll look at a Regency frock. You have some line drawings here, not terribly size inclusive, but again fairly simple, so you might be able to alter the pattern to make it fit you. Yeah, I've been a fan of folk wear for, like I said, 40 years. So some of the other patterns that they have here, let's look at Vicky's dresses. We'll look at the Mother Hubbard. Super simple dress here. Boy, that screams cottagecore, if nothing else does. Let's look at the 1804 bathing suit. I really want to make one of these bathing suits. I just think they're awesome. I think if you made them out of lightweight linen, I think that they'd just be super comfortable to wear around in the summer, whether or not you go into the water. Of course, if you make it out of lightweight linen and you go in the water, unintended consequences of that. So let's look at one of our other ones, 1880s. When we're looking at this, the page gives you some nice line drawings, a sample. It doesn't say how much fabric is needed up front, but this one seems to be a little bit more size included, sizes 2 to 30. So it doesn't have as much information on the pattern page, but it has some really lovely, lovely patterns. So next one up is Past Patterns, and their patterns go back to the mid 18th century. I believe that most of these are paper patterns, but I'm not right sure. Let's see. So fairly size inclusive. It does tell you measurements and yardage here. So it does give you a little bit more information about where the inspiration for this pattern came from. I like this one. It gives you a source for fabrics for it, and then also appropriate buttons. So this pattern comes with a lot of information, so I really enjoy this website. So let's look at some of the other ones. Look at women's patterns. They don't have a super lot of them, but they do have a nice range of time periods. So anywhere from the mid 18th century up until the end of the 19th century. So looking at Laughing Moon Mercantile, let's look at their patterns. I believe their patterns are only downloadable, but they do have some different types of patterns here. If you're interested in making clocked stockings, this is a source for the pattern, and it talks about how to do this out of fabric, so you'll need stretchy fabrics to make this out of. They have these classic fit pattern, this trousers. They look a lot like the slopers from that other website. So this is a great one to poke around if you are looking for more historical garments. They also have embroidery designs if that floats your boat. And if you have an embroidery machine, you can make some of these wonderful clocked stockings. It's like, oh, if only embroidery machines weren't so expensive, I would totally be all over this, because these would be a lot of fun on like a wool jersey, making tights and then doing these lovely clocked patterns on the embroidery machine. I may need to knock over a bank in order to afford a embroidery machine. Another one is, let's go to Truly Victorian. Now they have a little bit narrower historical focus, so let's look at the natural form time period. They have hats, they have dresses. Let's look at this tea gown. Prices are not terrible when it comes to these. They give you some idea of what it looks like through a couple of samples. You can download it or get a paper pattern, whatever floats your boat. It tells you how much fabric and notions you're going to need, and it gives you a size chart here, and it looks like that they are fairly inclusive. They have a wonderful array of different patterns that you can put together and mix and match for your different outfits. Let's look at a different time period. Let's look at Edwardian. Everyone's favorite time period. So you got tops, you got bottoms, you have undies, you have corsets, you have us waiting for the change of, oh, parasol covers. I was down in Palm Springs this last week for a work meeting, and boy howdy, one of these would have come in handy. I have a couple of old rickety umbrellas that I want to do covers for, recover them someday. They're in my someday pile. So that'll be a lot of fun to work on. Let's see, what else do they have? So that's Victorian, Truly Victorian. Let's try that again. So this one here is over on Etsy. In the document that you can download, I'll have some more links for over at Etsy. There's a lot of places that you can go to find. There's several companies that purchase vintage patterns that are out of copyright and will make them available electronically. So this one is a digital download. Now the thing with vintage patterns is that they are frequently not size inclusive at all. So you will need to grade these patterns if you are outside of the size range of that original vintage pattern. But she has a nice range of different time periods, hats, that kind of thing. Like I said, in the document, I will have more Etsy shops that do provide this kind of service, more Etsy shops that create their own patterns and not just adapt vintage pieces. And the thing to remember about, ooh, wow, look at that one. Oh my. Oh my, I like this one. Sorry, I digress. I don't know, where the hell was I going with that comment? Oh yeah. So there are some groups or some companies, shops on Etsy that make their own patterns. These vintage patterns, they don't tend to come with a lot of instructions like we're used to with modern patterns. So a lot of times these vintage patterns are might be a little bit much if you're a new beginning sewer, but if you're really adventurous, there's a lot that you can choose from. So the last one that I have here is the Vintage Patterns Wiki. So this, they don't have actual patterns here. What they do have is a huge database of these patterns so that you can look at the cover of the patterns and extrapolate how to pattern from that. It also gives you, you know, the year and the company and the pattern number, so that if you really like this pattern and want to find it, you can go to eBay or you can search for it on Etsy or anywhere else that might have vintage patterns, so that you can search for that. But it just has a huge number of patterns that you can look at. So we can go by decade. Let's look at the 70s. So they have a few patterns here. You can look at that one, this butterick pattern. Oh, I think I had that dress. That looks like a dress that I made in high school. Okay, so this is the last website that I have scheduled to talk about. I was just going to see if anyone has any questions. Okay, so this link, this video will be live fairly soon, and once YouTube gets done doing its magic. I wanted to thank all of the generous supporters over on Ko-fi that have donated over the last month. You really do bring sunshine into my world, and it is greatly, greatly appreciated. I will post a link to a downloadable document. I'm not really sure where it's going to be yet. I am in the process of finishing that. I was traveling for work this last week, so I'm a little bit behind on my prep for this video, and I do apologize for that. You know, let me know if you're interested in a video on how to print out and use these digital patterns. I've been thinking about doing a video on that. You know, feel free to continue the conversation and put questions in if they occur to you later. And until next time, stay safe, and I bid you joy. Thank you.